Site Gemini had been under construction for 2 years, and as the day of our first research project approached, my nerves were on edge. Not over the nature of the tests. They would be in well-controlled environments. Every possible precaution would be taken, and there wasn't a single test to be performed that wouldn't be signed off from the highest ranks of the Foundation. No, I was nervous because, after years as the head of research at Site-28, I had been promoted to site director of a brand new installation. I had proposed the construction of a new site to study potential interactions between anomalies. I was initially denied approval for this new installation. I accepted that the Foundation's resources were needed elsewhere. Then the black envelope arrived. A red, confidential stamp marked the front, announcing that the Facilities Division had broken ground on Site Gemini. My proposal was accepted after all. The Foundation largely allowed me to staff the building with researchers of my choice. A short letter at the back of the envelope informed me the O5 Council would expect a request for my first research project 6 months before facility completion, but I already knew which two I wanted: SCP-1226 and SCP-2816. 1226 is an oil painting of a nuclear detonation above a massive city. The detail was remarkable from the scans I had seen. It was as horrifying to look at as it was breathtaking to study. You could only look at it through pictures, though. Looking at it directly had a terrible effect. Anyone who looked directly at the painting itself would go through a violent and painful physical and mental metamorphosis. Their stature and muscles would increase rapidly as their spines curled into a simian posture. Scans of previous subjects showed that their skulls thickened and brain tissue decreased radically, causing a severe drop in cognitive ability and leaving only the most basic of instincts intact. All subjects suffering from this change were terminated after research. 2816 is a set of paintbrushes. Sounds boring enough, and they can be in certain situations. If you use them to paint an original work, you will have no trouble. If you use them to reproduce an existing painting, a man in a hazmat suit will appear when the painting is left unobserved. If you continue the period of non-observation, the man will essentially prepare the setting of the painting and any other living creatures depicted for nuclear fallout. He will place hazard signs, rebuild structures of stronger material, and place gas masks on anyone standing outside of a structure. During the process, the environment will take on the look of a post-detonation nuclear winter. If he is allowed to complete his preparations, everyone in the painting survives with no ill effect. However, if you change the painting in any way during this process, all progress will halt and the subjects in the painting will die, seemingly from radiation exposure. My first research project was simple. Use the brushes that comprised anomaly 2816 and use them to reproduce SCP-1226. An artist would be hired to replicate SCP-1226 through a CCTV view. After completion, the reproduced painting would be left in sealed storage for 10 days. During this time, I hypothesized that the hazmat man would appear in the copy of the painting and perform his usual nuclear fallout preparations and save the citizens depicted in the original painting. A D-class personnel strapped into a chair would be shown the original copy of SCP-1226. After their full physical and mental transition into the primordial being was completed, the de-evolved personnel would be shown the SCP-2816 copy of the painting. My hope was that by seeing the copied painting after the hazmat man had completed his alterations, the D-class personnel would revert to their normal state of being, reversing the effect of the original anomaly. The Council approved the experiment, but when I requested the D-class test subject be chosen on a voluntary basis, they declined. "We will send you a list of D-class subjects for you to pick from," said a raspy voice over the phone. He didn't identify himself, but those that high up rarely did. The Ethics Committee has compiled a list of 50 names belonging to personnel who have poor performance records. You will choose one of them, and they will be delivered 7 days before your project date to allow for the necessary physical and mental examinations. Sir, I said, hesitantly, we don't know if the process can be reversed. My team desires that anyone who participates in this experiment is made fully aware of the potential negative outcomes and participates in the study willingly. You may give them as much or as little information as you would like, Director, the man continued. However, this is an excellent opportunity to adequately utilize a staff member with a track record of poor performance. If they cannot assist the Foundation in daily operations, it seems they may be of some use to you. If they don't survive, no great loss. If they do, all the better. The Ethics Committee made this decision? I questioned. Ethics comes with its own gray area, he responded. If you're not able to select a subject, perhaps Site Gemini would be better served with a different director. I chose a name at random and the line went dead. Wilson Slattery arrived a week before the test took place. He was 25 years old. His face was covered in deep marks from teenage acne. His lean frame and shock of red hair gave him an almost childlike look. Slattery had been transferred to half a dozen different sites over the last 3 years. He started as a lab assistant at a redacted facility, but was demoted to facility maintenance after failing to properly document anomalous activity during his shifts. Maintenance didn't work out much better for him. He wasn't particularly skilled in facility repairs and damaged more equipment than he fixed. This resulted in a demotion to janitorial staff, which he completed poorly or not at all. Wilson, I said to the young man as he sat across from my desk, have any of the staff told you what you'll be doing at Site Gemini? No, sir, he replied with a smile. Just assumed I'd be on the good old janitorial crew here. Don't think my old boss liked me too much. They move me around a lot. Bit of a klutz, if I'm honest. But I'm gonna try real hard to do a good job here. You won't be on the janitorial staff here, Mr. Slattery. We are placing you on our observation team. You will be examining a few anomalies held here at the facility to ascertain their behavior in a controlled environment. Am I going to be a lab assistant again? He asked. I'd like that. No, Mr. Slattery. Your role will be purely an observation. We will have you observe various anomalies to study their behavior. The smile melted from his face. Yeah, you said that, he replied, a hint of mistrust in his voice. Will I be observing anything dangerous? I froze for a moment, the truth on the tip of my tongue. He was so young, and suddenly my urge to tell him what may happen drifted away like smoke in the breeze. Nothing dangerous, I lied. Just a few paintings. He smiled again. The test date arrived, and I watched from the monitor panel in my office as technicians opened the sealed chamber holding SCP-1226. It was covered in a plain white sheet, secured with clamps to minimize the chance of accidental exposure. 2 armed security guards walked behind it, rifles across their chests, staring ahead. The technician rolling the cart moved slowly as though a stiff breeze would blow the covering away from the painting. On my second monitor, I watched another identical team roll the SCP-2816 reproduction of the original painting from its containment unit toward the lab. It had been held there for 10 days to allow the hazmat man to make his changes. I clicked through the facility video feeds until I was looking down at a red-haired man strapped into a heavy metal chair. He looked almost calm, but as I zoomed in, I could see sweat beading on his neck, soaking into the collar of his plain white shirt. A fixator held his head straight as he looked through a plexiglass panel into another room beyond. His shoulders shook lightly and his body rattled as both covered paintings rolled into view through the transparent wall. Cutting to another view, I watched as both teams rolled the paintings into the room just off the test chamber. The security team stepped behind the carts, putting their backs against the wall and slipping their fingers on the trigger of their rifles. Nervously, both technicians stood behind the carts and unfastened the clips on the white sheets. The corners fluttered freely, draped over the painting, and threatened to slip away at any moment. They held the cloth firmly in their hands, waiting for directions. "Team 1226, please remove the cover," I said through the microphone. "I will start the countdown immediately." The technician gripped the top corners of the sheet and pulled it away quickly. My eyes were fixed on the monitor showing Wilson Slattery, strapped to his chair. I moved the mouse to the timer and started the countdown for 40 seconds.
"Sir,"
one of the security guards said, holding his hand to the earpiece.
"the subject has his eyes closed. Abort countdown."
I sighed and turned the mic on again. "Mr. Slattery, please open your eyes and observe the painting in the adjoining room." The man didn't respond. I clicked to change the monitor to a frontal view of Slattery. His eyes were tightly clenched, and the muscles on his jaw were rigid and pronounced. "Mr. Slattery, please open your eyes," I said in a calming tone. "As soon as we complete the tests, we'll send you to medical for a checkup, and you'll get a few days of R&R time. Let's get this wrapped up. What do you say?"
"Go to hell,"
he replied, fear palpable in his voice.
"You told me I was just gonna look at some paintings, but now I'm strapped into this fucking chair. I'm not looking."
"If you don't open your eyes, I will have to give you a low-level electrical discharge, and I don't want to do that." He remained silent. My hand drifted over to a red shock button beside the keyboard. It trembled there for a moment before I rested the tip of my finger on the smooth surface. "Mr. Slattery, Wilson, please open your eyes. I'm confident the test will be safe. Please, don't make me shock you." Silence. I pushed the button, and Wilson Slattery's body rattled violently in the chair. The speaker system reverberated with the feedback of his shocked scream. The technicians and security personnel pulled their earpieces out as the sound crackled loudly. After a moment, the charge finished and the staff put their earpieces back into place.
"His eyes are open, and he has a visual on SCP-1226.
The guard said gruffly.
Restart the countdown."
I clicked the timer button on the computer once more and watched as the seconds counted down. For the first few moments, he sat there, unmoving and silent. As the timer struck 7 seconds, his body began to shake again. He writhed as much as he could in his fixed position, straining against the straps and rattling the chair across the concrete floor. His muscles expanded and flexed, stretching the restraints. Vertebral bones rose harshly from his neck, pushing his head forward into a hunched position, breaking the fixator and sending the metal supports scattering to the floor. Slattery thrashed and roared as his body swelled, ripping with rapidly expanding muscles. His tethers began to shred and snapped, releasing his right hand. He grunted and moaned as his free hand tore savagely at the restraints on his legs and left wrist. He was free from the chair, and the transformation had only taken 17 seconds. "Uncover the second painting!" I shouted, and the technician behind it pulled the sheet away. Slattery, now in a rage, picked up the heavy chair and began slamming the legs against the plexiglass, separating him from the technician team. At first, the glass held firmly in place, but slowly, delicate spiderweb cracks began to spread across the surface. Both of the technicians who wheeled the cart in darted for the door, slamming it behind them. On his fifth swing, one of the chair legs splintered the plexiglass, creating a foot-wide opening. I slammed my hand down on the facility-wide emergency alarm button. I watched as one of the security personnel ran toward the hole in the glass and slipped the barrel of his rifle through. He fired wildly toward Slattery, sending bright red ribbons of blood splashing across the floor. For a moment, I thought it had killed him, but the Neanderthal creature lumbered forward, and jutted his hand through the ragged opening. His massive hand wrapped around the guard's head and squeezed. A red and gray explosion of helmet, brain, and flesh covered the screen, and the security guard's body dropped limply to the floor. Slattery slid his other hand through the window and pulled at the edges, ripping away chunks of plexiglass as he began shoving his enormous frame through into the other room.
Make him look at the other painting!
I screamed into the microphone.
Do it now!
What the hell do you recommend?
One of the guards replied.
Slattery doesn't seem to be up for a conversation at the moment. Get out of my way, you moron!
Another guard said, pushing the other security team members out of the way. He darted forward and grabbed the cart holding the copy of SCP-1226. I could see the painting clearly now for the first time, while the original painting showed the moments before a nuclear explosion obliterated the city. It looked like the hazmat man had finished his work in the copy. The streets were lined with bunker-style fallout shelters, and the windows of all of the buildings were covered with sheet metal. None of the citizens were in sight. The guard pulled the copy of SCP-1226 toward the corner. Slattery had finished widening the hole in the screen and had pulled himself fully into the room. He roared with bestial fury as he began lumbering toward the security team, who were now cowering behind the painting and fixing their rifles in Slattery's direction. The monster's eyes locked onto the painting as he approached his prey, and he stopped, almost as though he was hypnotized.
Should we shoot him?
One of the guards asked.
Stand by,
I replied.
I think the SCP-2816 copy is reversing the effects. If he moves toward you again, you have permission to fire.
I watched as the Slattery creature stood, transfixed by the painting. He sat heavily on the ground, eyes locked on the scene of nuclear fallout, and his body began to shudder again. Slowly, the newly developed muscles began to recede, and his neck began to straighten. I could hear him moaning in pain as his skeletal system realigned and his mass shrank. As he returned to his original size, he fell backward, shuddering on the floor.
Am I okay?
He croaked, holding his arms across his chest and shivering.
Everything hurts so damn bad.
One of the security guards walked forward, rifle leveled toward Slattery, examining him.
What is his status?
I asked.
Looks okay to me, sir. Back to normal.
He replied, hesitantly. The other two security guards still stood in the corner.
Orders?
Take him to medical and have them look him over,
I said with a relieved sigh.
Have maintenance come in and clean up the mess. And cover up those damn paintings. We don't need a repeat of this incident.
I watched as the guard extended a hand, lifting the trembling Slattery from the floor. The red-haired man leaned heavily against the guard as they began walking toward the door. They were only a few steps away from the exit when I watched Wilson Slattery's left leg shatter under the weight of his own body. He stumbled forward, and his right leg collapsed with a sickening crunch. Slattery fell from the guard's grip, hitting the floor hard and filling the room mic with the sound of cracking bones. On the monitor, I saw his shattered limbs, pointing in unnatural directions. His rib cage collapsed, and thick, foamy blood erupted from his mouth, covering the floor. He tried to scream, but the sound was choked off by the visceral flow. The guard stepped back from him and looked on in horror.
What the hell is happening to him?
I heard one of the guards ask. I leaned forward and rested my forehead against my hand, watching Wilson Slattery's body dissolve slowly into a glistening pile of shapeless flesh. It was a worrisome month as I waited for the reply to my report. The testing had been an utter failure, and I expected to be relieved from duty as the director of Site Gemini. A response didn't usually take so long, and my mind felt like it was unraveling. Then my office phone rang.
The Council has reviewed the results of your initial test,
said the same raspy voice from a month and a half earlier.
We were surprised by the results.
I'll pack up my office immediately,
I replied in resignation.
Don't be so hasty, Director,
the man replied with a laugh.
The Foundation considers the test highly successful. We await the proposal for your next project.
Sir, the test killed Slattery. Why would you want me to run another?
Because
he replied whimsically.
there are 49 other names on your list. Plenty of opportunities.
The line went dead. SCP-1226 is currently classified as safe. The anomaly presents as a photorealistic 2-meter by 4-meter oil painting of a nuclear device detonating over a large city. Exceptional attention to detail includes optically correct reflection angles of broken glass shards, as well as the various physical ailments suffered by the 3,129 people walking the streets. Any person viewing the painting will go through an immense physical and psychological chain that is completed in approximately 40 seconds. A marked increase in physical size and musculature will be followed by curving of the spine, sloping of the brow, and protrusion of the jaw. Features of the affected persons have been described as caveman in appearance, though subsequent autopsies have revealed no genetic relation to known prehistoric hominids. The affected subject will lose most mental capacity and show interest in only food, water, attempted procreation, and other rudimentary instinctual behaviors. They show a high propensity for violence and will attack any unaffected personnel within reach. SCP-2816 is currently classified as safe. The anomaly is a set of paintbrushes. When used to create an original piece of art, there are no detectable anomalous signs. If 2816 is used to reproduce an existing piece of art, if left unobserved, the picture will begin to change. An individual wearing a level C hazmat suit will appear in the painting. They may remain in their initial position for up to 24 hours, but afterward will begin to make changes to their structure or environment. Changes include overhauling the structure to fix any damage, adding safety equipment, replacing walls with stronger materials, or placing hazard signs on any exits. As more changes are made, any humans in the picture will grow to look anxious as progression is made. Any person located outside of the building will have a gas mask placed on their face by the individual in the hazmat suit. Within 5 days of the initial changes, the environment will take on the features of nuclear winter. If the hazmat-suited person completes their preparations without any observers disturbing the painting during the process, those in the photo will remain unaffected by the environmental change. It is to be noted that any tampering with the painting before preparations are complete will result in no further changes other than the continued progress and destruction of the nuclear winter setting. All other subjects in the painting will expire. The newly discovered interactions between SCP-1226 and SCP-2816 will continue to be studied at Site Gemini. Hey guys, thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast for more SCP stories like this one. You can also check out some more episodes from the SCP Experience podcast here. I'll see you in the next one.